Hello fellow readers, it's Amy, and I thought since, it's only been 2 weeks since the TBR takedown that I should do my wrap-up for the readathon and talk about my thoughts on the books that I finished and all of that. So if you watched my vlogs for that time, you already know what I read and all that stuff, but I didn't go into detail about my thoughts on all the books, so that's what this is for. So let's get started with the books that I read. The first book that I read and finished is How to Catch a Prince by Rachel Hawke. This is the third book in the Royal Weddings series, and I really enjoyed this book. It follows 2 characters. I'm not going to give their names because I don't want to really spoil anything if you haven't read any of this series. And so it follows a guy and a girl and their journey of really finding out about love and their problems that they have in their life and the heartache and the hurt and all of that. And I really enjoyed these characters. I thought that their problems and their hurts were actually realistic with the way that they were acting, and it didn't make me feel annoyed that they were struggling, if that makes sense, because what they were struggling with actually is problematic. It's not, it was not about a girl complaining that she could possibly be a princess. And then you have the gentleman who is not struggling with, he's struggling with actual real problems that aren't just about royalty. And so I really enjoyed these 2 characters. The only problem that I had with this story is that this is the 3rd book in the series, and this book had a lot of whimsical, mystical elements to it, which I absolutely loved, but the other 2 books in the series did not have that, and so it bothered me that it didn't really fit with the series. I loved the book. I loved the whimsical, mystical aspects to it. I thought it brought more of a fairy tale-esque story, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was done well, and you did have to suspend your disbelief in it that, you have these real characters that are in, a real place, and these mystical things are happening. But it just was done really beautifully, and I really loved it. This is definitely my favorite book in the series. I just wish that either this was the first book in the series and you had that whimsical aspect, or she wrote whimsical aspects into the rest of the series. So I would recommend this series. I would almost say skip the second one, because the second one, the characters don't really play into the first book and the second book, or the first book and the third book, and I didn't like the second book, but I really liked the first one and I really loved this one, and so I would recommend it if you are looking for just a fun contemporary romance about princes and princesses and ordinary people. So yes, so that is How to Catch a Prince by Rachel Hawke, and if you're wondering, I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars, or maybe a 3.75 out of 5. I can't remember. So I really liked it, but I did have some problems with it. Okay, and then the second book that I started and finished was Dumplin by Julie Murphy. This book follows this plus-size girl who is, in the beginning, she's really just happy with who she is and the body she has, and she decides to enter in this local beauty pageant, and all of the stuff that goes into the fact that she's not the typical contestant of a beauty pageant. And so I thought it was going to be more about just bigger girls just rising up and really taking the world by storm, and there were aspects of that, but there were just parts of it that it was going really strong, and then just the main character kind of switched her mindset, and you started with this main character who was really okay with who she was and the way she looked, and she was proud of who she was, and she wasn't ashamed of the body that she had. And then just about halfway through the book, she switched mindsets, and I'm just not okay with that. I don't know, yes, I know it's a struggle to always feel good about yourself, and I think no matter what body size you are, no matter what you look like, no matter what, I think as women we really do struggle with comparison and with just feeling good about ourselves. And I thought this was going to be just a book that about women like really rising up and really just not caring what other people think and be like, I'm beautiful because it's who I am. And it was part of that, but there was just aspects that really bothered me. And then there were just, the ending was so lackluster that it really bothered me. I wanted more from the ending and I didn't get it. So I still recommend this book. I think the writing is done really well. I think the characters are funny and witty and really relatable. There's just some aspects of it that I wish I wanted more from it, and I would definitely read a book I would definitely read a sequel if she wrote a sequel to this, because I really do want to know what happens to Win, the main character, and all of that. So I definitely recommend it. I think it's a good book, especially for young adults. I think it had really great content, and I think it was done well for, especially for teenage girls. I think it has a great message about bullying, about body shaming, and about really taking pride in who you are. And there's just some really great characters. I do recommend it. I just personally had a little bit of issues about it, but overall I like this, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars for Dumplin by Julie Murphy. And then the book that I read like 2 pages in that was on my list was The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. I was sick and I just couldn't. And so I read 2 pages in this. And then I started Me Before You by Jojo Moyes during the readathon, and I read, I think, like 100 pages of this during the readathon, and I really enjoyed it. I have finished it. I will have a review of it in my next wrap-up, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good story. I have a lot of feels for it. Yeah, it kind of wrecked me. Okay, well guys, that is the wrap-up of the TBR Takedown. I would love to know how you guys did. I've watched a lot of videos of your wrap-up, but if you know that I haven't watched it, or if you're like, I don't know if she has, put a link down below to your video, or tell me what your favorite book that you read during the readathon, or if you didn't do TBR Takedown and you just want to talk about some of the books that I read. I would love to hear your thoughts on that. And guys, as always, I hope you're having a great reading month, and I will see you on the flip side. Bye! Bye! I'm so